he attacked her and she shot him.
It was a love affair that moved fast, really fast. 54-year-old widower Doug Benefield met a 24-year-old swimsuit model and ballerina named Ashley Byers, and within 13 days, they were married. Doug was head over heels in love and infatuated with his new bride. Doug was a very successful businessman living in Charleston, South Carolina. He supported Ashley and her dream of creating a ballet company in Charleston. When the ballet company was being put together, Ashley got pregnant. She then moved down to Florida to be with her mother. The ballet company went out of business, and then the couple became entwined in a bitter custody battle for the baby. Ashley accused Doug of trying to poison her, something the family court judge did not believe. Then, just before a big date in court, Ashley shot and killed Doug. She's been charged with murder, but is claiming self-defense. And now, as she prepares for her trial here on Court TV, supporters of Ashley Benefield have started voicing their opinions. And tonight, we take a closer look at the We Stand with Ashley movement as we get ready for the Black Swan murder trial. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And we can exhale, right? We went through a long ride in a very unusual case, the case of Karen Read. It was unlike any case I've covered in my many years at Court TV. And it was unusual for many reasons. But perhaps the most significant reason that really set the Karen Read trial apart from any other was the public reaction to that case and what was happening up in Canton, Massachusetts. And of course, I'm talking about this powerful movement of Karen Read supporters. When have we ever seen in a case where it's a woman accused of murdering her boyfriend, you know, similar to a spousal murder case? We've covered a lot through the years, and I've seen a lot of these through the years. Rarely do they get the attention of the public to the point that they start a movement and they start protesting and showing up and supporting an accused killer. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Yeah, family is there, friends will show up to the courthouse, but not complete strangers. By the dozens and dozens and dozens showing up, taking time from their own lives and their own days to march and wear shirts supporting someone. And that's what happened in the Karen Read trial. And many believe it was very effective because that public outcry sort of changed the nature of that case. So much so that she wasn't convicted. It was a deadlocked jury. There's some controversy about whether or not they were deadlocked on all the charges, but that's another story for another night. Tonight we're talking about another woman, also accused of murder. Her name is Ashley Benefield. Her background is she was a swimsuit model. She was a ballerina, a dancer. When she was 24 years old, she met a man who was 30 years older than she was, and they got married within 2 weeks of meeting one another. And that's the man she's accused of murdering. Now, domestic situations are very complicated, and the public doesn't necessarily know everything that's going on behind closed doors. And because of that, and because of the nature of these things, it's rare, again, that the public would respond to the case or take a stand in the case because they don't really know what's going on, right? Behind closed doors in a marriage, or a marriage that's breaking up, that's turning into a custody battle. We've seen it many times. And people can have opinions and feelings, and I know Court TV viewers have strong opinions about many of these cases. But you're not going to the courthouse and showing up and protesting or supporting. But it seems that now this may be happening to some extent with Ashley Benefield, with the We Stand with Ashley movement. All of a sudden, people have adopted, it seems, a color. They've got signs, they've got a cause, and They believe that this woman has been wrongfully accused of murder and that she is the actual victim of abuse, domestic violence, and should not be charged and should be set free. So, you know, the question as I sit here tonight is, with the high-profile nature of Karen Reed and what happened there and how it changed the perception of that case, I'm wondering if more of this is going to happen and if that's what inspired some folks down in Florida to take up this cause. We're going to talk about it this hour. But first, for those of you who don't know the backstory and the allegations here, because the people supporting Ashley Benefield say that she is a victim. Here's more from Court TV anchor Julia Janae.
Okay, let the record reflect we're back on for Benefield versus Benefield.
July 2018, Ashley Benefield and her estranged husband, Doug, are in a Sarasota courtroom. Ashley had given birth to their daughter 4 months earlier, but had immediately filed an injunction against Doug, alleging domestic violence.
He was verbally abusive. He would yell and scream at me, and he would threaten me.
Doug was a retired Air Force officer who was 30 years older than Ashley. During the hearing, she took the stand to detail her concerns about him to a judge.
He had insinuated that outside of the military that he had connections and that he could kill people, that he could make people disappear. And I begged him to not shoot the gun. And he said that I was going to have to watch him shoot his brains out. On multiple occasions, he hurt our pets in order to hurt me. So I have concerns that he would do something like that to the child as well.
The couple married in 2016 after a 2-week courtship and agreed they wanted to start a family.
He had the vasectomy reversal, and 3 months later, she got pregnant.
Within a week, I had gone from being a fairly normal functioning human to very ill.
She was horribly nauseating.
And then was there a decision made by you and her together that she was going to come stay with her mom for a while here in Florida?
Yes.
In September of 2017, Ashley went back to their marital home in Charleston to pack up her things and to break it off with Doug. She left a detailed note accusing him of putting her life in danger, punching holes in the wall, and acting psychotic after she became pregnant. That winter, Doug moved to Florida to be closer to his wife, but by March, Ashley was not speaking to him. He hired an attorney to help him communicate with her.
Doug wanted to express his interest and desire to be part of the birth process, to be present if possible.
The day after Doug's attorney reached out to Ashley, she had an emergency C-section. Doug had no idea his daughter had been born.
The medical records state that it was an emergency C-section that had been unplanned.
His attorney suggested the injunction was Ashley's attempt to deny Doug contact with their child.
Have you ever even seen a picture of your daughter?
Not until your paralegal sent it to me last week.
The motion detailed how she believed Doug Benefield poisoned her and their unborn child during her pregnancy.
When your daughter was born, she had heavy metals in her system?
Yes.
And they're the same heavy metals that you have in your system, correct?
Yes.
Did you ever give Ms. Benefield anything during your marriage that would cause heavy metal poisoning?
No, not going on.
The family court judge overseeing the case denied the injunction, rejecting Ashley's allegations against her husband.
This court will find that as far as credibility is concerned, I would find, and I'm going to say this in the gentlest form I possibly can, that there is absolutely not a single scintilla of credibility that I'm attaching to anything that was testified to, at least in this hearing of Ms. Benefield.
So that's where we are. And again, we've got this movement that is taking place. So I want to get some more information, some more insight. And joining me, public safety and justice reporter for the Bradenton Herald down in Florida, Michael Moore, joining us by phone tonight. Michael, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, I want to talk about this We Stand with Ashley movement. I've seen some of their stuff on Facebook, and obviously in the Bradenton Herald, I saw you guys did a whole piece on this. You did. Can you explain to us sort of what the movement is about, how it came about, and what you learned from them?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So the other week, my editor was coming into work. We work downtown, right across from the courthouse. I practically live at the courthouse. I'm there all the time. He goes, "Hey, not to be that guy, but it seems like there's a protest going on across the street." So, I go and check it out, and I'm greeted by just a sea of purple marching all around with "We Stand with Ashley" signs and shirts. A bunch of different signs, "See the evidence, there's no excuse for abuse," "Love shouldn't hurt," things of that nature. And as you kind of touched on your show earlier, it's not uncommon for protests to, kind of happen at the courthouse. Again, I'm there all the time. You see it a lot. But I got to say, this is definitely the first time I've ever seen a protest in support of somebody charged with second-degree murder with a firearm. It's extremely unusual, to say the least. But basically, these people, friends, family members, and just supporters in general, as it has gained so much attention, not just locally, but, nationally, are saying that Ashley Benefield is a victim of domestic abuse, and, that she is being wrongfully accused of murder and wrongfully, tried as a result.
Now, is there any connection? Well, first, was Ashley Benefield there at the protest?
I don't believe Ashley was. Her mother, Alicia Byers, and her 6-year-old daughter were. Her daughter was holding a sign, basically saying, to free her mom, essentially. But yeah, there was close friends, family there, and just a whole variety of people.
And what's your sense of the level of commitment that this group has? The trial's coming up next week. Do you suspect that they are going to show up at the courthouse? Are they going to be in the gallery? Are they going to be in the courtroom wearing their colors and their support for Ashley? Any idea how all that's going to play out?
Sure. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how the courthouse itself navigates it, and what they allow in terms of obviously theatrics in the courtroom generally aren't approved. So I'm sure the judge is going to do things to limit what exactly can be expressed in that manner. So I don't know, as far as wearing the colors, and obviously they're going to have to limit some of the ways that they're showing support naturally. But yeah, I fully expect that a ton of them are going to be there. I expect this to be a very different sort of trial than what we mostly see locally, and honestly just a different sort of trial in general. It's got a really long court docket. It's played out over the course of more than 3.5 years. She does have a lot of support. It is a very divisive and very just a case that's gotten a lot of people's attention. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of them there.
As you describe what is going to happen, or we expect to happen beginning next week down there in Florida, we're coming off of a 3-month trial here on Court TV involving another woman. She was accused of murdering her boyfriend, Karen Reed. That group was protesting throughout all the pretrial hearings, so much so that the judge entered an order keeping protesters 200 feet away from the courthouse, so none of the jurors or prospective jurors would see them. They also put it in a courtroom where there wasn't really room for anyone. Do you have any idea, do you think the judge or the prosecutors or anyone know that these folks may be showing up when the trial starts?
I mean, we'll see. It's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out in that way. We don't generally see this sort of thing, at this courthouse. It's very unusual. I mean, they've got to know that they're out there protesting. Wednesday's protest was the day before a case management hearing. They also protested a few days before that out on Anna Maria Island, which is a place nearby as well. So they're going in a few different areas, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. Jury selection starts on the 22nd. It's going to be really interesting to see if they're out there the whole time. And you know, if anything is done, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see how the judge limits any of those things if they do choose to do so. And
Ashley Benefield, the defendant, is out on bond, right? So she's going to be able to walk in and out of the courthouse freely and perhaps be encouraged or supported or greeted by her supporters.
Yeah, I mean, that's not something you see every day. I mean, to have that kind of support and cheerleading squad when you're facing potentially life in prison, I mean, that's got to make you feel better about your situation, I guess. It's, make you feel a little less alone and sort of bolster your spirits and, feel like maybe you have some positive momentum going into this thing. But, at the end of the day, jurors are going to decide, whether they think it was self-defense or murder or something in between,
Absolutely.
But ultimately, it's up to them.
Michael Moore, public safety justice reporter for the Braden Herald. Appreciate you coming on tonight. Hope you can join us during the course of our coverage of this trial. We really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, folks, we've got a lot more to get to. We're going to bring in our think tank, and coming up next hour. Madeline Soto was murdered and found 20 miles from home, discarded off the side of a road. Prosecutors say they know who is responsible, the man they have accused of sexually abusing her mom's boyfriend, Stephen Stearns. Tonight, new information about the evidence and the timeline.
Did a customs agent commit cold-blooded murder?
Marsha Thompson is accused of fatally shooting her husband as he's lying on a couch.
She's claiming self-defense, alleging that Terry Thompson repeatedly threatened to kill her.
So what really happened inside this home?
Now a jury will decide the fate of this law enforcement officer.
And Court TV will bring it all to you.
The abused wife or murderer trial, weekday mornings, only on Court TV.
So they were in an argument?
I don't know. She came in. She was quite hysterical. I didn't know who was banging on my door. Said that he attacked her and she shot him. They've been having trouble.
Okay. I'm just getting that all on the screen, okay?
Okay. Calm down. I know.
Okay,
it's not what people think it. It's not what people think it is. I know.
That's Ashley Benefield running to a neighbor after she shoots her estranged husband, Doug. She still has the gun with her. The neighbor calls 911. Now, all of this taking place in the midst of an ongoing custody battle that they had. And if you talk to one side, there was a reconciliation that was taking place. If you talk to the other side, they said no plans of a reconciliation. She was trying to get away from Doug. What we do know is that 3 days after the shooting, or the shooting took place 3 days before, the judge was supposed to come back with results from a psych evaluation that was done of Ashley and Doug that would impact the custody rights of both parents. So that's where we are in this case. And as I've been saying, there is now this movement, a local movement down in Florida supporting Ashley Benefield as a victim of domestic violence, as a victim of abuse, and someone who has been wrongfully charged with murder. Is this going to be a new approach now in some of these cases where people accused of a crime that say they're innocent are going to get some folks to come down to the courthouse and support them? Let's bring in a think tank. Joining me tonight, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Al Wunsch III. Also with us, criminal defense attorney Darnell Crossland and family law attorney Jennifer Brand. Great to see everyone. We've got the right group looking at this one. Al, I'll begin with you. What do you think of this? I mean, I don't know if they were inspired by what they saw nationally with Karen Reed, this group, but what they're doing is very similar. They've adopted a color. They've got the signs up. They're showing up now at pretrial hearings, and I suspect they'll be there throughout the trial.
It's remarkable to me, Vinny, that we now live in a world of Kreskins, people that know what happened, people that can predict the future, people that can tell us, even though they weren't there, even though they haven't heard any evidence, even though they haven't seen anything, there's not an iota of evidence on this case that they know for sure that this woman is the victim of domestic violence. I have been handling domestic violence cases for 30 years. Okay, I have prosecuted and I have defended. I have never heard a judge in a hearing, okay, on domestic violence say that she didn't find even a scintilla of credibility as to Ashley when she was testifying. I mean, that is just huge. And the burden, just so people know, is not beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay, it's preponderance of the evidence. More likely than not. And there wasn't a scintilla of evidence that came forth on this. And this is a woman who put 3 .45 caliber shots into her husband. 3 .45 caliber shots. It's like shooting in a tank. Okay, that is the kind of gun that you're using in this. It gives you a permanent wound channel that's unbelievable. He was shot in the leg, he was shot in the arm, he was shot in the chest. One of those, if she was that afraid, would have gotten her out of there. It's remarkable. But everybody knows better than the courts, better than anything, and they were never even there. Just remember, dead men tell no tales, and that's what we have here.
Darnell, speaking of not telling tales, there's another interesting part to all of this. She has alleged stand your ground, which is the law down in Florida. She lost the stand your ground hearing, but she didn't testify. Take a listen. Here she is at that moment where she has to make the decision.
Ms. Benefield, I do need to have a little bit of a conversation with you. So if you'd raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, so.
All right. Ma'am, you can remain seated. Do you understand that in this hearing, you have the right to testify, you have the right not to testify, you do have the right to remain silent? Do you understand?
Yes.
And you understand you've chosen not to testify?
Yes, sir.
And is that your decision and your decision alone after speaking with your attorneys and consulting with them?
Yes, sir.
And you also have the right to present evidence. You don't have to, but you could present, documents, videos, the testimony of other witnesses. You have that right. Do you understand?
Yes.
You understand that you and your attorneys have decided not to put on any evidence?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you're okay with all of that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Just want to make sure. Thank you, sir.
So Darnell, there's another part of this, right? Which is after the shooting, she didn't give a statement to police. Now, obviously, you don't have to, and I know folks like you will tell everyone don't do it. But in a case of self-defense, there's no way police are not going to arrest you. There's no way prosecutors aren't going to charge you if you shoot an unarmed man and provide no statement.
Well, I mean, if that's really not a super accurate conclusion. I mean, the idea in that statement you just made is that if you're gonna be exonerated, that you must exonerate yourself.
No. What I'm saying is if you shoot someone who's unarmed,
right,
you have to expect to be arrested and charged.
That's what I'm saying. I really disagree with that conclusion because if you shoot someone who's unarmed, the police typically will come in and they will look for evidence on their own, and they have to do two things. One, they can get an on-site arrest if they find enough for an arrest, or two, they will not arrest you. They'll take all the information and then they'll spend weeks or months or however long it takes to create probable cause or find probable cause. Better way to put it.
That's what they did here. 5 weeks. It was 5 weeks.
Yeah. So that if they do that, then they'll take it to a judge and say, Judge, based on the totality of what we've seen, we think we have enough for an arrest. Do you agree? And the judge and the prosecutors agree, they'll sign off on the warrant, and you'll get picked up. So you're saying if she was to speak, maybe she'll help herself.
Yeah,
and I tend to think that,
tell your story. Like if you and same thing at your stand your ground hearing. Like if you want the judge to understand your side of the story, you got to kind of tell your side of the story.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of times you're only going to be able to tell your side of the story effectively at trial. If you tell the police this, they're going to say, "Are you sure this? Are you sure that? Do you want some more water?" Whatever. It's sort of like Central Park 5. You're going to be there for days and weeks, and next thing you know, you talk yourself right into a jail cell. There's no possible way that we, as experts in this space, think that a layperson under that stress is going to tell an effective story to not lead to an arrest. And they're going to get arrested anyway under these circumstances, but they just don't need their story coming back to now be something that the prosecutor used to throw back at them. So I understand where you're going with this. Try to help yourself, but I think you're not helping yourself.
Well, and that'll be the amazing part of this trial is she may very well, for the first time, tell her story on the stand. Now, it's not guaranteed, but it's very possible. Okay, Jennifer Brandt, looking at this movement and people showing up, and this is a case of a husband and a wife. They're now estranged. You're in it all the time in family court. You know how emotional it gets. Are you surprised by the support, and what do you think the impact of this support will be?
I am surprised at the support. I'm not surprised at her family standing behind her, because of course they will, and of course they're going to believe her. But I am surprised that you're getting strangers and supporters that are coming out, showing up at the courthouse and showing all of this support for her, especially given what we know about the case and what Al said earlier. She had tried to claim abuse in the past. She was in the middle of a custody hearing. The judge said there wasn't a scintilla of evidence. I mean, this is not someone who seems very sympathetic from what we know. And then you have, a spouse who is dead, who was shot by her. Now, I mean, yes, I feel strongly about victims of domestic violence and, that they should be believed, but the court didn't believe her previously. So it is kind of interesting that she is getting such support for her case, given the facts that we know about. What happened in Karen Reed and seeing all the supporters that she had, I mean, I think it does have an impact. I mean, we see all the hoopla and all the publicity that surrounded the trial, and I think a lot of it was due to all of these supporters that came out again and again and spoke out on her behalf. So it seems to be somewhat effective, and we'll see how long this lasts and if the support grows for Ashley Benefield while this trial goes on. It'll be interesting to see how that impacts the outcome of the trial.
Now, she hasn't spoken or given a statement about the shooting, but prior to the shooting, during the custody battle, she spoke a lot. And when we come back, we're going to hear Ashley Benefield's allegations against her estranged husband, and we'll ask our think tank how that could impact her defense of battered spouse syndrome.
I was headed towards the laundry room because I was afraid, and he started screaming, and he told me that, this is a quote, that he was going to blow his brains out. And so I stopped and I dropped to the floor and I started crying, and I begged him to not shoot the gun. And he said that I was going to have to watch him shoot his brains out.
Ashley Benefield, this was at the family court custody battle that she was engaged with Doug Benefield. She's now charged with murdering Doug Benefield. But at that hearing, she spoke and she testified at length. Let's take a listen to some of the allegations that she has made against Doug Benefield, the victim in this murder trial. And as you listen to them, keep in the back of your mind that not only is she alleging self-defense at the moment, but she's also alleging battered spouse syndrome. Let's listen.
He came home from work early, and I was in the bedroom, and he came in, and he immediately became very angry and started accusing me of not loving him, and said that if I had loved him, that I would have responded with a kissing emoji or a heart back. At one point, he had turned to walk away from me, and he was standing in the opening of the closet, and I was standing right on the outside of the closet, and he turned around and he punched a hole through the wall with his fist. He pulled the gun out. I believe it was in his boot, and he pulled it out and he started waving it around. It was unholstered at the time. He then threw the gun facing me. It missed me. It hit the wall behind me and it punched a large hole. He started screaming, and he told me that, this is a quote, that he was going to blow his brains out. And so I stopped and I dropped to the floor and I started crying, and I begged him to not shoot the gun. And he said that I was going to have to watch him shoot his brains out. And I was screaming and asking him not to. I told him I wouldn't leave. I was literally on my hands and knees. And he, I guess at some point, discharged the gun. I didn't see him aim it at the ceiling, but the bullet went into the ceiling. I had been trying to figure out for a while how to get out.
Get out of what?
Out of danger.
Did you feel in danger?
Yes, I did.
And so what did you figure out?
Well, I realized that since I was in Florida already, that it was a good opportunity to just not go back, and that I knew that my mom would let me stay.
Okay. Did you go back to South Carolina at any point in time after August 26th?
I did twice. On September 18th,
September 18th, meaning after he was down for the storm?
Correct.
You went to South Carolina and did what?
I knew that he would be busy with the media that had come for the launch of the ballet company, which was set to open on September 18th, so I knew he wouldn't be home. So I went to the house and I grabbed a bunch of my clothes and things out of my drawers that all belonged to me. When I had been brought down to Florida, I didn't have anything with me.
So you went in the home, took your physical possessions?
Correct, yeah.
Did you take anything of his?
No.
Did you leave him a note?
I did.
Okay, and what did you tell him?
I outlined some of the reasons why I was leaving and doing what I was doing. I explained very clearly how he had scared me and that I wasn't okay with the way he was treating me. I also talked about the different problems that there were in the house.
What did you tell him about the abuse? The same things we're talking about here?
Yes, I also included several incidences where he was angry while he was driving, and he scared me. One time he actually ran up on a curb, through grass, almost hit a tree because he was yelling and screaming at me. He made a U-turn, drove home on a road that speed limit's probably 25. He was probably going 50, 60. Pulls into the driveway. I thought he was going to just drive straight through the garage. He slams on the brakes and was yelling and screaming at me. There had been multiple times where he got angry while he was driving. Even when he brought me down to Florida, he got angry while he was driving, and he would drive erratically. And I would cry and I would beg him to stop. I sometimes even asked him to pull over so I could get out, and he wouldn't.
Okay. And so did you file anything in South Carolina to keep him away from you?
I did. The order in November.
So in November, you went to court on the domestic violence in South Carolina?
Yes.
And when you went to court in front of the judge in South Carolina, did you ask the judge to prevent him from being around you?
I did.
And did the judge issue a restraining order?
Yes, I believe so.
All right, Darnell, does it sound like battered spouse syndrome?
No, absolutely not. It sounds like she's an award-winning actress. And the funny thing about it is that when she finally manufactured some emotion, was about to start crying, and maybe she was about to get the real award, they started to question her, and then she just snapped back out of it and went back into that cold, callous, calculated, nonsensical position. So, no, doesn't sound like she carried battered woman syndrome to me.
Jennifer, as you listen to her, is this common in family law courts to have allegations going back and forth? And does it come down to, I guess in family court it's a judge, but here it'll be a jury trying to figure out if they believe this stuff?
Happens every day of my life, Vinny. This is typical. There's allegations made from one side to the other, and oftentimes no witnesses. So it's a he said, she said, and it comes down to a question of credibility. Usually a judge will decide it. Here, like you said, it'll be a jury. But it's very common to hear things like this. She's testifying, I guess, at the custody hearing. She's not talking anything about the child. She's talking about herself. So I can see why a judge would not really put much weight into any of this. And as to the battered woman syndrome, I mean, it's a serious thing and something to be concerned about. But here, she wasn't even with him. She left South Carolina and she went to Florida, and she wasn't living with him. He wasn't there all the time. And she got, I believe, a custody order that allowed him visitation. He came down to Florida to see his child. So it wasn't like she was living under this constant abuse, at least at the time that he was killed. So that's something else to think about.
And the audio clips that we played, just so we don't misrepresent anything, were put together. So it wasn't a straight, continuous question and answer. So I don't want to mislead anyone listening at home.
And we didn't hear his testimony either.
Well, you're going to hear some of it right now. You're going to hear a piece right now. I'm going to play for Al. Al, take a listen to Doug Benefield here now, talking about shooting the gun into the ceiling, kind of like Phil Spector. Let's listen.
In 2017, you shot a gun into the ceiling of the home with Ashley present in the same room, correct?
Yes, sir.
She started to have a nervous breakdown?
I mean, I don't know what the definition of a nervous breakdown is. I just knew that I was under enormous stress and we needed to pause for a minute. There's not a lot of great ways to figure out what I was thinking. It was definitely to put a stop to the conversation. I've never hurt anybody in my life, but it was definitely it was right there in front of me, and I'm a country boy, grew up with guns, and so I just shot into the ceiling.
Okay, and again, two pieces there where the flash was. We were putting two pieces together. Al, what are your thoughts? As this trial plays out, can they play statements of Doug Benefield if he admitted to things during some of these hearings? And does she have to testify, or will her expert try to testify to her alleged abuse?
Well, that's coming from some form of testimony, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it all is, yeah.
Right, so then therefore they are going to be able to play that. They should be able to play that. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't. But, you know, the interesting thing is this. Okay, so you talk about the gun. She talks about the gun. He shoots it into the ceiling. And I didn't hear her once say that he pointed the gun at her. She says that he's, you know, he's going to put the gun on himself. He's going to blow his brains out in front of her, and that upsets her and everything else. He throws the gun, okay, but he never points the gun at her. There's no instance where she says that, you know, he put the gun at me and that scared the bejesus out of me and this, that, the other thing. No, she was frightened that he was going to kill himself. So if anyone was going to be doing harm, he was going to be doing harm to himself, not to her. And it's just it's a very weird scenario. And the fact that she didn't testify, you know, at the stand your ground hearing, to me is very troubling with regards to that so-called defense. I mean, and I'm glad the judge didn't find it at that point, because I've never seen that. I mean, that's the whole essence of the stand your ground, is you stand your ground and you say, I'm here for a reason. I did this for a reason. I'm not going to testify? You have to guess, Your Honor, as to why I did this? Doesn't make any sense to me. But like I said, no point did she mention that he pointed the gun at her.
Darnell, I mean, she has to testify at the trial, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To convince a jury about what she says was going on in this relationship.
Absolutely. And just to vary a little bit from what Al's position is, absolutely, I agree with her position that if somebody, you, Al, Jennifer, any of us, I'm in a room with you guys, we're at a convention and you're losing it and we have a relationship and you threaten to kill yourself, I'm going to be nervous. And especially in their relationship. So you don't have to point the gun at her. A lot of these times, these people will off someone else and then off themselves. So the fact that you introduced a gun into the scenario, I think she has a good position there. And if I was her lawyer, I'll build from that up, because that's a very dangerous and concerning space to be in.
Jennifer, are you shocked that the gun didn't have an impact on the way things went down in family court?
I am. It may have had an impact. She says she did get a protection order from him in South Carolina, so maybe that's where it did have an impact. But in a custody matter, yeah, it's dangerous that he has a gun, for sure, and you don't want a gun around a child, and maybe a judge would put some restraints on that. But I don't think the judge believed what she was saying. I don't think, and the judge obviously believed him, that he was angry, shot the gun up in the ceiling, and never meant to hurt her or himself. Wasn't a smart thing to do, but yet I don't think the judge felt that it was threatening toward her or the child.
Now, there's another element to all of this. This is from a bond hearing, a recent bond hearing in June, where Ashley Benefield's family law attorney testified, and she said, yes, she was in fear for her life. He was abusive towards their daughter and was very controlling and abusive towards her. Did you develop a plan to secure her safety? Brown, yes, I did. Brown, Dr. Russell secured her a hotel room in St. Petersburg that was actually listed under her husband's name as well as mine so that Ashley would not be able to be located. The goal was for her to be there until the hearing on that upcoming, I believe it was a Wednesday, for the injunction. And this happened on a Saturday, the shooting, is that right? It happened Sunday night, and we were moving her on Monday. So what are your thoughts here? And Jennifer, I'll ask you. There was a big decision that had to be made during the week, and her attorney said they were trying to get her away so she would be safe.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty powerful. That's pretty powerful testimony. It adds, you're right, a different element to this, that there was something else going on. There was something, and now you have a third person. It is her attorney, but somebody else coming in who obviously believed her and wanted to get her into safety. So that is pretty powerful testimony, without a doubt, and does add.
And we shall see, what it's going to do. Big thank you to our think tank, Al Wunsch, Darnell Crosline, and Jennifer Brown.